Monday, February 5th, 2018. All board members, in addition to our student advisory board member, are present. And Ms. Davis, would you please lead us in the flag salute? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you for being here tonight. In line with our Destination 2020 goal addressing safety and security, we share the following information. Restrooms are located at the far end of the hall directly across the atrium. An automated electronic defibrillator, an AED, is located across the hall in a white box, and a first aid kit is mounted to the wall by the second exit. We do not conduct evacuation drills during our meetings, so if an alarm sounds or an alert is announced, this is the real thing. Please begin to take safe action immediately. In the event we have to evacuate this building, 4 exit doors are located on your right and all have a lit exit sign over them. Once you enter the atrium, proceed quickly along the safest route to a door leading out of the building. If you do not have a vehicle here or it is unsafe to enter your vehicle and you need a place to wait for help, we have designated the parking lot next to the gas station as our rally point. If you see something that is dangerous, we encourage you to speak up and clearly alert the room of the danger you see. And we encourage everyone to quickly begin taking action. Information will be provided throughout the event as available so everyone can best decide the safest action to take given the current situation. And Ms. Plunkett, would you please do our monthly safety topic?
February is American Heart Health Month, sponsored by the American Heart Association and the National Safety Council. Heart attack and stroke are life and death emergencies. Every second counts. If you see or have any of the below listed symptoms, immediately call 911 or your emergency response number. Not all of the signs occur in every heart attack. Sometimes they go away in return. If some occur, get help fast. Chest discomfort. Most heart attacks involve discomfort in the middle or center of the chest that lasts more than a few minutes or that goes away and comes back. It can feel like uncomfortable pressure, squeezing, fullness, or pain. Discomfort in other areas of the upper body. Symptoms can include pain or discomfort in one or both arms, the back, neck, jaw, or stomach. Shortness of breath, with or without chest discomfort. Other signs may include breaking out in a cold sweat, nausea, or lightheadedness. For more information on heart attacks, strokes, and how to stay heart healthy, please visit the American Heart Association at www.heart.org. And I can attest to this quite recently with both my father and my uncle, and it's something that definitely is life and death, and it's something you don't want to wait on. In addition, with strokes, there is a medicine that you can get that does help that, but there is a magic hour or two with that as well. So that's the other reason it's so important to get to the hospital fast to check it out.
Thank you very much. And for our Koyana, Dave?
Koyana, a Central Yupik word for thank you, is also the name of our site-based award of appreciation. Awards can be given to any employee or volunteer in recognition of achievement, service, or dedication. Koyanas can be viewed or submitted by filling out an online Koyana form through the ASD website. One Koyana will be randomly selected from the website to be highlighted at a bi-monthly board meeting. This meeting's Koyana comes from Jennifer Bloom, instructional coach at Russian Jack Elementary. Jennifer writes, Koyana to Carol Tucker, Allison Showers-Culp, Tanya Young, Kathy Everett, and Bobby Lafferty at the instructional coaching leads. This school year has been a year of growth and change. These professionals have collaborated to provide incredible support and knowledge to all of the instructional coaches. Their positive attitudes, willingness to adapt, and expert knowledge leads to be recognized and praised. I am a better coach because of this team.
Thank you very much. And Kaylee, would you do our opening statement, please?
We want to welcome you to our board meeting and thank you for attending and supporting the work of the Anchorage School District and this board. The board thanks students, parents, teachers, staff, school business partners, and the entire community for your investment in our district with your time, your talent, and your tax dollars. As partners, we will respect your time and make this meeting as effective and efficient as possible. If you aren't able to be physically present for the entire meeting, you may choose to tune into the Municipality of Anchorage's Channel 9 or YouTube to watch the live stream. Recordings of meetings are also available through the agenda and board docs and are closed captioned in compliance with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. The primary purpose of the regular business meeting of the Anchorage School Board is to recognize excellence, receive reports, approve policies and contracts, as well as decide on the rules and processes followed by the board to facilitate orderly decision-making. The role is to govern, not to solve management issues. My name is Kaylee Spencer, and I am the student representative to this board. I was elected to serve through the Anchorage School District Student Advisory Board. Although my votes are only advisory, I offer student voice to this body.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any dissension? The agenda is approved as is. Before we begin public testimony, I was asked by the superintendent if she could make a brief statement on some changes that have occurred in the budget since it was first published on Friday.
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. And in light of the principals and parents that have contacted me last Friday, we did make an adjustment in the elementary Ignite program at elementary schools. And so I know we have folks being testifying on it, and we had already updated it, so I didn't want to catch anyone in not knowing the information, but welcome all the testimonies so the board can hear the similar feedback. The original reduction that was proposed in the budget was for 6 Ignite teachers to be reduced in the overall budget for elementary schools. The goal for the team was to present a better way to deliver services. We've had quite a bit of information received this year in regard to our Ignite program and ability of students to receive gifted services. And presently our Ignite programs are in our elementary schools and provide an extension to students for 2.5 hours a day. And one of the comments made to me was that students aren't just gifted 2.5 hours a week, rather. They're gifted all the way around. So how do we infuse into our school day, taking that into account? And one of the primary concerns was for advancement. So rather than just enrichment, advancement, could I, as a 6th grader, get my pre-algebra in the school day rather than before school via electronic courses. So we've been working on those things. We don't have an answer. The goal is to actually put together a team of parents, teachers, principals to work on that to better meet student needs for Ignite. We did make that change after speaking to the principals. Last Friday we spoke to them, and so over the weekend we updated the information. At the finance meeting we updated the board. We had a work session on it, but none of that has actually gone to the public. So I received some correspondence over the weekend, and I just wanted to share back out during testimony. There are still additional changes at the high school level in that the 2 FTE for highly gifted is actually moved to the West budget because the highly gifted teachers don't teach anywhere else, so they were just added to West High's budget. In addition, we had 1.2 FTE here at the district office to do facilitate the paperwork for middle school gifted, and we are taking care of that through addenda and through our supervisor and moving teaching staff out to schools. Additionally, each middle school received 0.2 FTE to support the paperwork and questions, and what we're doing with those is supporting that through here as well as addenda at the school rather than FTE. It wasn't a kind of a whole person anyway given to those, so that was a redesign of the secondary, but the elementary actually had reductions of people working with students, and those reductions were removed because there isn't a better plan that can be made and articulated before the school start. So we will not be adjusting any of those employees that actually work with students. And just wanted to share that. I was actually requested to do that prior to this meeting.
Okay. With that, we're going to move to public testimony on non-action items. The board welcomes public comments on agenda items, both action and non-action, as well as in general. We value public comment as it both ensures we remain aware of public thoughts, ideas, and concerns, and it informs our decision-making process. We have a table front and center with microphones and 2 seats available for testimony. When I call your name, I'll probably call 2 people up at a time. You have 3 minutes to testify, and you may begin speaking when the timer appears on this screen to your left and begins the countdown. When you have 30 seconds left, the number will turn yellow. When the timer reaches 0, please finish your sentence. Additionally, it's not our practice that board members answer questions or engage in discussion with members of the public. This is your time to speak and our time to listen. The board will consider all information shared by the public, and when deemed necessary, issues raised in testimony will be referred to the administration for follow-up. So the first one I have on the list is Anna Bierma, and the second is Michelle Laufer, if you'd like to come and take the 2 seats up front. You may begin.
Good evening, ASD board members. My name is Anna Bierma. I am currently enrolled in the Highly Gifted program at West High School as a freshman. I also attended Romig Middle School and Rogers Park Elementary in the Highly Gifted program. I am here today to advocate for the gifted programs that have been proposed for changes or cuts. I did tune into the budget discussion earlier, and specifically regarding the proposed gifted cuts or shift in funds. I am glad to hear that the funding cuts to Ignite have been put on hold, but I still feel the need to express my great appreciation for the gifted program and the essential role that it plays in our school district. I began my education as Susanna Optional, where I was not academically challenged. The teachers did their best to provide what I needed in the regular classroom, but I have distinct memories of going to the 4th and 5th grade classroom as a kindergartner to find books for reading time and sitting aside by myself during math time doing work from a higher level workbook. When I started the 1st grade, I became apathetic and uncaring. The feeling is one that I cannot even begin to explain. I was unchallenged, bored, and I didn't even want to go to school. In the end, my parents and I made the decision to have me skip to a 2nd, 3rd grade classroom. In that classroom as a 6-year-old, I was only slightly more challenged. I was still finishing work long before others, doing filler work and feeling apathetic towards school. Still, I ended the school year and even began the next. However, in the early weeks of 3rd grade, my parents decided to transfer me to the Highly Gifted program at Rogers Park Elementary. I did attend Ignite for 2 weeks before being accepted into the program and transferring. However, those few hours per week were just not enough. I do understand that the proposed cuts are mainly targeting secondary education. However, secondary education, specifically middle school, is, I believe, one of the most crucial times for a student to be challenged in the gifted program. At Romig, I discovered a passion for school, found some of my best friends, and had countless amazing teachers who understood the unique needs of gifted learners. I participated in activities like debate, Model UN, various sports, and orchestra, and I loved every second of it. The highly gifted programs at Rogers Park and Romig play a large role in who I am today, and I don't know what I would have done without them. Especially in middle school, when students are beginning to figure out who they are and what they want to become, being in an environment tailored to their needs is crucial. Now in the highly gifted program at West, I am hoping to pursue early admission college classes or an IB diploma. However, without the opportunities I have been given in the highly gifted program, especially at Romig and West, I would not have the skills and confidence to pursue these options. Without the highly gifted programs provided by ASD, I honestly do not know where I would be today. The HD program has been a lifesaver to me, and I would hate to see future students denied of the opportunities provided by the program. Without adequate funding at the secondary level, I do not believe that ASD will be able to carry out their mission of educating all students for success in life. I am so very grateful to the ASD gifted program that helped address my academic and emotional needs all these years, and I wholeheartedly hope that the district is able to continue to provide sufficient funding to these programs that impact thousands of young lives, including my own. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. And I'd like to call up Noah Laufer. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Michelle Laufer, and I'm the mom to 3 kids in gifted middle and high school services and the pediatrician to many other of these kids. One of my kids fits the gifted mold perfectly. He has an IQ in the exceptional range and was reading Harry Potter by the end of kindergarten. He is vocal and challenging and can be annoying to both teachers and students and parents. In elementary school, he considered everyone his friend, but he was not invited to playdates or birthday parties. He was bullied, and even a teacher was repeatedly unkind to him. Somehow, my son completed elementary school virtually unable to write a complete sentence, just as he was also reading the Iliad. In contrast, in the Romig gifted program this year, he thrives. He has friends. He was invited to a birthday party last week. His talented and specialized teachers have massaged his funny little brain in such a way that the other night he wrote an essay that brought my husband and I to tears. Miss Vi, Miss Stanley, Mr. Bruce, and Mr. Walker hold the bar high and somehow get him to jump. He has surprised even himself. His teachers don't come to me saying that he talks too much or that his questions stray from the topic at hand. He is confident, loves school, and has found an educational home, which I hope will remain there for him. He has specialized educational needs. On another note, in recent years at West High, where we have a sophomore, there have been a minimum of 8 National Merit Scholars, all the products of gifted and high school education. And this year there are 11 Presidential Scholar candidates. Again, all the product of gifted, highly gifted programs. This is not by accident. Of course, these kids are smart, but qualifying for these programs requires extensive support by a knowledgeable counselor, including days of paperwork, letter writing, etc. per kid. The current gifted counselor at West High, Ms. Fryer, is a nationally recognized presence in gifted education and counseling. As a result of her work with the extremely successful gifted program at West, she received the very high honor of being one of 7 high school counselors from the entire country over the last few years to join 7 elite college admissions officers in Chicago each January to read for and select National Merit Scholar finalists. So she is one of 7 in the entire country. Her involvement in NMS benefits not only West High, but the whole district. While at NMS over the last few years, Ms. Fryer befriended and invited to Anchorage 5 elite college admissions officers. While here, they spoke to students at all ASD high schools and offered a workshop for counselors across the district. Ms. Fryer's connections and the strength of the gifted high school program keep Anchorage students on the front burner of college admissions officers at elite colleges. So far this year, early admissions have been offered to West High School highly gifted students by Yale, Stanford, Georgetown, Duke, and many other schools. Please consider continued middle and high school gifted funding as a service to our entire district and community. We have specialized teachers and counselors who are nationally recognized. Eliminating a very successful program threatens the national face of West High, the ASD, and diminishes prospects for our most competitive students to reach their potential.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
And I'd like to invite Cameron Nilsson up, please. Cameron Nilsson. Mr. Laufer.
Should I start speaking?
Sure.
My name is Noah Laufer, so you're going to get a double dose of Laufers. Sorry. Like Anna, I went to Susitna. I am a third-generation Alaskan. I'm a father of 3 kids, all in the HG program. My wife, Michelle's a pediatrician. I'm a family doc. I'd like to make this as simple as possible. I'm a physician, but I'm also a small business owner, and I'm an employer, and I try hard to recruit people to Alaska. We are, whether you like it or not, out of money. Everybody knows that here. We are in a global and national competition for talent and for capital. And if you want to attract people to this community, one of the primary issues is the quality of the educational opportunities. You might have guessed that my wife values that and had a big part in our decision to return here. In 10 years, Abby, my daughter here, will hopefully decide to come back. But this is it. You know, can a child who grows up in Anchorage have an opportunity to go to a world-class university, get a good education, have special needs met or not? To me, it's absolutely critical, and I couldn't talk my children into bringing their grandchildren or their children back, who will then be, you know, fifth generation Alaskans if the opportunity is not here. It's that simple. Spend the money on where it needs to be spent or don't. I'll yield my time to the gentleman.
Thank you for your testimony. And I'm assuming this is Sawyer also up? Yes. Cameron, you're first.
Okay. Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Cameron Nilsson, and I am a 4th grader in the HG program at Rogers Park Elementary.
My name is Sawyer Nilsson.
So, speak up, sorry.
My name is Sawyer Nilsson. I am also a 4th grader in HG at Rogers Park, and Cameron is my twin brother, in case you were wondering why we look alike.
A couple of days ago, I became aware of budget cuts involving the gifted program. This was worrying to me because I have gotten so much out of the highly gifted program in the last 3 years. For example, in 3rd grade, I became interested in what kinds of bridges would be the strongest during high-magnitude earthquakes. So I used a computer simulation program and concluded that the beam girder and cable stay bridges were the strongest in a magnitude 8.5 earthquake, compared to cantilever truss bridges, which could be destroyed by a 7.5 earthquake. I would not have been inspired to do this project if I had not had access to a science program that showed me how to design projects and test hypotheses instead of just memorizing them.
In 2nd grade, I used hardware and art supplies to manufacture bridges, boats, dams, and shelters. In 3rd grade, I built relief maps out of clay for geography. We used chemicals to create chemical reactions and substances such as oobleck, and we studied constellations and drew posters about Greek mythological figures. In 4th grade, I am designing a memorial for explorer Henry Hudson and determining what the cost of materials and labor would be to sculpt my design. In our class mini-society, I designed money while acting as the bank president, created Google slideshow art presentations as my class's artist-in-residence, worked as a sheriff's deputy, and created STEAM presentations as a chemical engineer.
All of these projects took time and money that is probably beyond the scope of an average classroom materials budget, which makes sense to me because gifted education classrooms usually focus on using facts that we memorize quickly and try to convert them to use in real life.
This means that we need money and teachers to create projects that answer the question, why do we need to know this stuff? Or to help us learn it even better. That is why we believe that the gifted program and the HG program need funding for our needs just as much as the average or special ed program needs special tools to meet their needs.
Thank you for your time and attention. Good night.
Thank you so much for your fabulous testimony. I'd like to call to the front David Neese and Billy Mears.
Sorry, Mr. Neese, that's going to be a tough act of...
Wow. That's a tough one to follow. Good job, boys. Okay, just 2 topics. First of all, on gifted education, both my children were in the gifted education program, and they were transported from their home school up to, I believe it was Kassoon, for a couple hours a day. They didn't consider themselves just gifted for those 2 hours a day. My neighbor children across the street went to Rogers Park. They're in the 30s now, so they've been doing that for a long time. What you have in Anchorage works. It serves your gifted population. Unfortunately, the state years ago decided that funding for gifted education was not terribly important, so about the only thing they help you out with is bus transportation. They do, however, mandate that you shall have a program. So if you want to fix the funding part of it, that's where you need to start, is the legislature, because it was in there and they've pulled it back out. Gifted education is as necessary as special education. It should never be on the table in a budget discussion because you have a special population of children to serve. What always people explain it to me is special ed's going to be 4% of your population, gifted's going to be 2% of your population, and you have to serve both ends of that spectrum. They're just as hard to teach, they're just as difficult, they are just as needy, high and low. On another note, I was happy to see that the
referendum on the welcoming Anchorage. Went through the process, came back out, got discussed. I like the final document. I think it's a good document. And I think it was healthy to have the discussion. I mean, democracy works the best when people challenge each other's ideas and what you're thinking. So as you have these parents up here telling you that, gifted's important, it is so important that, when you have a kid go to school and they don't want to go to school because it's like walking in slow motion because the teacher's going at regular speed, but it sounds like this to the gifted kids. So anything you do to protect that, it's just as important as protecting special education.
Thank you for your testimony. I'd like to call up Mike Reisinger and Mr. Mears.
Good evening, School Board, Madam President, Bishop, Superintendent Bishop. I'm here representing and speaking on behalf of the unseen people that work for the Anchorage School District, the custodians and the building plan operators. This is in regards to the 2019 budget and the set continuation of budget cuts because of the state of the state, as Mr. Niso eloquently put. So, little history of myself. I come from the Anchorage School District. I graduated from the Anchorage School District at West High School along with Katy Grant. I worked for the Anchorage School District for 15 years, at Rogers Park actually, there too. And that ended in 2003, and then I went to work for the union, Public Employees Local 71, representing the Anchorage School District custodians along with state workers and municipality. Now, I had all sorts of stuff written down, but I don't want to take up a bunch of your time. I mean, I don't know if anything that I had to say will, help out in any way. But our custodians, 20 years ago, we had a lot more custodians. We had a 360 staff in the Anchorage School District Operations Department. We had not as many elementary schools, not as many high schools, for sure, but we still got the schools clean. And with these budget cuts that have been going on for the past few years and 20 years ago, we've seen the reduction in the workforce. And we've seen the cleanliness of the schools continually go down. For instance, is 20 years ago when the high school and elementary and middle school lead custodians and night crews worked, they worked a 12-month shift. And in them 12 months in the summertime when nobody thinks anything is going on, they actually went in and refurbished the entire facility to include furniture, floors, ceiling, walls, everything. That ended 15, 17 years ago. At that time, there was a budget cut again, and they laid off 40 custodians that were never brought back. So, of course, then we were down to 340 custodians. Now, in this last round of budgets, we've had layoffs here and there, and we were lucky enough that they came back through attrition. Well, in this time, in last negotiations recently, we fulfilled our obligation of assisting the school district in cutting $1.2 million from the budget part of the operations department. And we just met with the Superintendent Bishop and with finance, and we were informed that through our negotiations and through our forming of positions that we have never had before to ensure that these schools continue to get clean, to include Rogers Park, these schools that have part-time every other day cleaning. We entered into a letter of agreement to where we will establish a cleaning crew that will provide the cleaning environment that part of the statement mission of the Anchorage School District is to provide the kids with a learning, safe, clean environment. This is going down. And with the continual cuts, we were just informed of another $1 million in cuts. We can't help anymore. We have taken as cuts. We've given up benefits. We've given up positions. We don't have nothing else to give up to continue with the cleaning program that you guys were used to and that is continually falling down. Like I said, I had 3 pages of stuff written down, but I don't know where this is going to go with this. I just hope that you guys take in consideration that clean schools then cuts down on flus, colds, infections, everything. Continual cut just means these schools eventually cleanliness is going to be abysmal. They're at level 2 cleaning right now. We used to keep it level 3. A lot of you people out there don't realize that your kids, they go here, they spread germs. We clean up, we keep that stuff from you guys bringing them home. But with the continuation of budget cuts, we're done. We can't continue this.
Thank you.
So I ask that you guys take in consideration.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yep.
I'd like to call up Mike Bronson. And I'm saying it right, Reisinger?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm a teacher at Service High School and a former student in the PACT program, so I appreciate all of the gifted programs. August 16th, 2017 was Teacher First Work Day. However, the first pay period started September 1st, 12 work days later. Even though that pay period officially went through September 30th, we received our checks on September 15th, halfway through the stated pay period. The last teacher workday of the 2016-17 school year was May 25th, but somehow the last pay period was June 1st through June 20th, with a check being paid June 6th. I teach math, so I realize that I end up getting my full salary paid to me, but I find it strange that there are times I work that aren't covered under a pay period, and times I don't work that are covered under a pay period. I have never had a job that operated like this. Switching gears, but still talking about payroll, according to Alaska Statute 14.25.370, all Tier 3 retirement contributions should be transmitted as soon as administratively feasible, but in no event later than 15 days following the close of the payroll period. The intent seems to be that retirement contributions should happen with minimum delay when possible, but it gives districts some leeway in case issues arise. Contributions into our retirement accounts occurred on the 18th through the 24th of the month following each pay period so far this school year. From what I've been told, this is due to the district taking the full 15 days, the state taking a few days, and then the investment company Empower taking a day. When the district already has 15 days between the time the payroll checks are deposited until the end of the pay period, it shouldn't take an extra 15 days to transmit the retirement funds. This is made worse at the start of the year with the 2 weeks of work that aren't covered under a pay period. The first contribution into our retirement accounts for this school year was on October 24th. To put that in perspective, the first quarter of the school year ended 4 days prior to that. We worked a quarter of our contract before we saw any contributions into our retirement accounts. I get what I'm talking, when I'm talking about this, it's a very small amount of money for each individual each month. But over the course of a career, this can add up to large amounts of money missing from a retirement account. This doesn't only affect Tier 3 employees. Tier 1 and Tier 2 have the same problem with contributions being delayed. In a system that already has unfunded liability, the longer those contributions are kept out of the pension plan accounts, the more money the state and therefore taxpayers will need to pay to keep pensions funded. This affects staff members and community members in a very real way. I appreciate your time and respectfully request that an effort be made to shorten the retirement contribution window.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I'd like to call up to the second seat Reverend William Green. Mr. Bronson.
Hi, I'm Mike Bronson. I'm a volunteer with the local National Association for the Advancement of Colored People here in Anchorage. Our main message tonight has to do with the budget proposal that you're looking at closely this month. And our main message is that we do not want you to vote for a budget proposal to the legislature this month that would lay off another 25 to 50 teachers and raise class size. Instead, we would suggest a detailed proposal of how you'll improve class sizes and academic results. You have the long-standing goal to raise some 24,000 kids from below proficient to proficient in reading and math. That'll take a massive effort. We like it that you now plan to take $4 million from your reserves to retain some teachers next year. That'll be money well spent. On the other hand, you don't necessarily have to accept the flat funding assumptions that you read in the 2018-2019 pro forma. Just saying. For an academic improvement plan, what direction could the school board follow? First, this is a suggestion, you could read closely your report from Pike-Soden in 2016. It compared Anchorage schools to a number of improved lower 48 schools, and your experts then listed changes that the school district could make to meet your Destination 2020 academic goals. The second thing is you could also read Judge Gleason's results in the Moore versus State of Alaska case. We think that the evidence in her court orders amounts to the biggest and the best high-level study of Alaska school adequacy that's ever been done. To turn around low-performing schools, not unlike many of ours in Anchorage, the court pointed to moderate class size, teacher quality, and providing quality pre-K for thousands of kids across Alaska. So to summarize, what we suggest is that you could build an academic improvement plan for Anchorage, starting with the Pike-Soden report that you have, and the Gleason recommendations as guidance. And then take that plan and make it part of your budget proposal to the legislature as early as this month, and ask them to sponsor those academic improvement programs. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. I'd like to call to the podium Tom Klemeyer. Reverend Green.
Yes. I'd like to say good evening to all of the school board and superintendent. My name is Pastor Green, and I'm here on an issue that I've been coming this the fourth time, and that is in your budget. I would hope that we could request additional money to bring our children, that 67% that's below standard, bring them up to standard and stop laying off teachers. And I hope that we could, I hope that something can be done about that, because I'm concerned about that 67%. What happened 20 years from today? All right? They probably fill the jailhouse up. And so we need to start getting some constructive plan, doing something about that 67% from the 3rd to the 10th grade below standard, to bring them up to standard before we can agree to lay off any more teachers. And we can go forward, and I'm willing to do that before the legislators, and find out what does it take for us to bring those kids up to standard. And I think the district in your request for your budget should emphasizing that, hey, this is our goal and objectives and our vision for that 67%. And I rest my case.
Thank you, sir. Tim Fitzpatrick, please come forward. Mr. Klemeyer.
Hello, I'm Tom Klemeyer, President of Anchorage Education Association. I appreciate the testimony this evening. I think as the budget, well, first of all, I appreciate all the work that the administration is doing and the school board. No matter what decision you make in terms of cutting, there's somebody that's going to fight against it. And I would say that's the problem with the process. You are statutorily required to and required by the municipality to have a balanced budget, and so it forces you into a perverse incentive to pit special ed students against gifted students, against whatever a regular student would be, to pit custodians against teachers, to pit class size versus attracting and retaining everybody that you need to educate the whole child. The system is stacked against you, it's stacked against our kids, and it's going to be harmful to the community should it continue. But like the gentleman before me, I would posit that by simply acquiescing to that system because of that requirement, that you become complicit in fostering the false notion that there are cuts to be made. The fact is, we need to somehow, perhaps separate from the legal budget that you're required to submit that's balanced, but somehow present to our community, to our legislators, a budget that it would take to adequately fund education, make that public, and when they don't fund it by the deadline in order that you have to meet, then the conversation becomes one in the community, not blasting you guys for decisions that you're forced into. But I would say, and so I'm not going to, we need to not make any cuts. It would be my thing. But in looking at the budget document, I would, similar to a question that Mr. Donley had in the work session about capital improvement, on page 8 of your handbook that you put out, it listed the results of the community survey, and I find it ironic that number 1 and number 2 far and away above any of the other items that the community finds most important in funding our class size and clean and safe schools and facilities, and yet we're doing everything to mess that up, right? If we cut educators, if we cut custodians, if you cut counselors, if you cut any other way, anywhere, that's the end result is not meeting the needs and what the community has said that they want. The top 2 items And this budget is contrary to that. Secondly, on page 2, there's a review of our Destination 2020 goals. How can we meet our performance goals, 90% of students proficient reading and writing with fewer educators? How are we going to increase graduation rates with fewer educators, fewer support, less materials? How are we going to get parents to recommend the schools that didn't meet their children's needs? How are they going to be safe schools? And so I would just say that there is no cut that doesn't hurt students, and I implore you to find a way around this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And I'd like to invite Valerie Baglerud. I'm saying it correctly? Baglerud? I'm sorry. I had a line underneath. I know who you are. Tim.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing public input on the budget. My name is Tim Fitzpatrick. My wife and I have 2 girls in the highly gifted program at Rogers Park. I'm here in the name of equality in the challenges you give to Anchorage students, and equality in the resources you provide to deliver those challenges. The proposed budget reflects a district-wide personnel reduction of 1.7%. So why then is gifted education, even excluding those 6 Ignite positions, receiving a 16% staffing reduction? Including the proposed cuts, gifted education in Anchorage has lost 18 FTEs going back to 2013, leaving less than 40 FTEs at the end of next year. Let me tell you a little bit about the people paying for those cuts. Our oldest daughter taught herself to read when she was 3. She read the entire Magic Treehouse series of books before she started kindergarten. When she was ready for kindergarten, we looked at her neighborhood school and were told she'd have a fun year working on letters, shapes, and colors. We knew that we needed to find something else to ensure that she developed a love of learning from day one. Today, she's 9 years old and has a Lexile score that puts her reading at the college level. I'd love to tell you that this is due to great parenting, but it's not. Her younger sister is 6 and sometimes does math problems in her head at night to settle down before she goes to bed. Again, not due to great parenting. On the way in, I noticed the ASD sign in the lobby includes the saying, educating all students for success in life. Not some students, all students. ASD's highly gifted policy is to admit all students who qualify, a laudable, equitable policy. HG enrollment grows rapidly in the first few years, but ASD fails to scale resources as enrollment grows. When our oldest daughter was in 1st grade, her class had the distinction of being the largest 1st grade class in the entire district. Our younger daughter started kindergarten this year in a split K-1 class because the district won't provide a dedicated kindergarten teacher. By mid-year, the class grew to over 30 students, and instead of talking about what she learned at school, we talked about room clears and disruptive behavior. Now she's in a K-only class taught by a long-term sub. Unlike other ASD kindergarten classes, hers has no dedicated classroom assistant. Her teacher is a caring, enthusiastic, and an energetic person. Unfortunately, she has limited experience and no gifted education training. When my wife and I see cuts like those that you are proposing, then our faith that you're committed to educating all students for success in life is further eroded. I come here tonight with open eyes about the deficits the school district and the state face. I'm not asking for anything special for my own children. I'm asking that they not be disadvantaged in their education. I recognize that your budget job is difficult and thankless. Thank you for giving me the time tonight to share my views.
Thank you for your testimony. And I'd like to invite Sabra Tierney up, please. Valerie.
Thank you for allowing me a few minutes of your time tonight. My decision to pop in while dropping off my far more famous daughter was fairly impromptu, but in light of last Thursday's very unexpected events, I felt that I had to at least make a quick thank you. And I reiterate very unexpected events. In fact, if anyone has any doubts as to whether or not I expected to hear my name called as a Milken Educator Award recipient, I would suggest that you Google the words Milken, Alaska, and peruse the images that come up. I assure you the facial expressions associated with those images are pure, unadulterated surprise. I heard some of you back there. You have become familiar with the image, and laughing is totally understandable. I came here with one simple message tonight, and that was to say thank you. I wanted to thank the board for taking time to be there last Thursday, for my administration and my coworkers at Eagle River High School for their support, my students for being awesome almost 100% of the time, and my community members for the outpouring of congratulations that I've received. Last week, I saw something unusual that unfortunately educators do not see or hear often enough. I heard multiple people thanking teachers for their hard work and dedication. I heard unapologetic praise for the profession of teaching. I felt pride sitting in the auditorium in a way that I wish I felt more often. When we read the names of teachers or reports about schools in papers and on the news, it is rarely with attention called to our accomplishments. I sometimes find my eyes skimming the comments section, which you should never, ever do, for just one person who believes in what I'm doing and supports my endeavors. Last week was a reminder that our efforts are not going unnoticed, and indeed people are paying attention and still believe in us. It was a reminder to me that I need to say thank you more often to the teachers that are educating my own children. I need to say thank you to my colleagues that inspire me every day. The Jacob Barras incorporating global issues into his art classroom and bringing social awareness to world issues. The Prinkas that are making a world full of future engineers and programmers through our award-winning robotics program. Counselors like Sarah Lane, who is literally saving lives by the connections that she makes with students every day. My husband, Andy, teaching a split French and math position at my school and putting in double time at home while tutoring our own children with love and patience that I aspire to. I want to thank you, our school board, for the hard work and oftentimes hard decisions that you are forced to make. I know that you're headed to Juneau this week to advocate for everyone in this room, and I want to thank you for that. I also want to ask that you remember what my union president and former mentor teacher, Tom Claymire, mentioned not just in the last meeting, but again tonight, and that is to forget the status quo of accepting less than what our students deserve. I encourage you to go in with a fresh perspective, reminding legislators that what they sometimes see as dollar signs are actually the faces of the future of our great state. Underfunding education, overburdening school districts with logistical expectations and testing, and bypassing educators in times of big decisions is destructive to our future. Remind them that good things are happening in our district and our state. I think of Eagle River as a microcosm for ASD, and knowing that amazing things are happening at my school is a reminder that amazing things are happening statewide as well as district-wide. The best moment last Thursday was not in the moment when they called my name, but when I heard the students whispering the names of which teacher they thought it would be, and it was a reminder that it wouldn't have been a surprise if any other person in that room name had been called to those students. Every teacher deserves that award. Thank you for your time, and thank you to everyone in the room who supports education.
Thank you for your testimony. You may begin.
Hello, my name is Sabre Tierney. I am an alumnus from Chugiak High School back in 2013, and I'm currently a student at UAA. I am here to discuss the possible reinstatement of not just the Russian language program throughout the ASD school district, but the language districts, the language all over the state. I'm currently a Japanese, Chinese, Russian major at UAA. Languages are my life, and languages have, it was Chugiak that inspired my language love, and now is my passion and what I plan to do. I hope to be a teacher actually for the Anchorage School District. But I have noticed that we are getting rid of programs that need to be around. There are so many people living in Alaska, we know this, and of that, according to the statistics, and this is in 2010, mind you, 87% spoke English. Of that 87%, 62% spoke a second language in their home. Of that 62%, I believe it was 27% spoke Russian. And we're disadvantaging our students. And I'm saying students because, like I said, I would like to be a teacher. We're disadvantaging our students in a world where we are multicultural, and we have to have multiple languages because more and more people are becoming intolerant to English, and more people, yes, English is the power language, but more and more people are like, you need to adapt to us and not we adapt to you. And I feel like that is something that needs to happen. We need to encourage our students to know these languages because it's the job. There is a demand for it, but there's not a supply. And I am just asking very nicely and encourage that maybe if the budget has that ability to add in those languages back to inspire other students and children and give them the advantage that some don't have currently. And I thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you for your testimony. That is the end of people who have signed up in advance. There will be another period later in the meeting for non-action item testimony. And of course, during the action items, we will bring each one up and ask if there's any testimony to be had at that time. So thank you very much. So we move to the report section of our meeting. Do we have a military report this evening? Our military liaison is not present, so we will move then to the superintendent update.
Thank you, Madam President. There are several items on the agenda. The first one that I will move to is just a recognition of the school board. Not sure if you knew, but I thought it was nice that Valerie came up and talked about thanking you. I just want to let you know that there was a proclamation by Governor Bill Walker that February is the statewide school board month, and want to share that we will provide a reception on the 20th with some support from school. So I wanted the board to know so that you can plan ahead to be sure not to miss that one. With that, the first item up for the superintendent report is actually a guest speakers. I would like to please invite Butch and Cindy Moore to the front podium. And we have other special guests as well that are going to speak. You can take a seat right up the front there and then just trade out chairs if you'd like.
Thank you.
Yep, and I'm going to turn over my time and to just share with the board how we are in partnership with the community and specifically on Breeze Law.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much.
And please identify yourself for the
Thank you so much. I'm Butch Moore. This is my wife, Cindy Moore. And I want to say that we have an absolutely amazing superintendent here. I don't know anyone else who would have been able to get us a solid hour in front of you tonight. So with that said, I wanted to talk about teachers a little bit. And I have two of what I feel to be some of my greatest accomplishments. And this was in the late 80s, maybe the early 90s, right after the crash here. And I saw one of my teachers from high school who taught me economics walk into a restaurant and sat down with some other people, and I excused myself from a lunch meeting I had, and I walked over and I said, Mr. Boyer, I want to tell you what a great job you did and what you taught me in my economics class at Chugiak High School, where I went to school with Pat Garrity. And he says, well, I'm kind of in an interview here. And I looked at Rob and I said, well, are you going to hire these guys? And he said, no, they're interviewing me for a job. And I said, well, I'll have you know that, and at that point in time, I wasn't 30 years old yet. I said, I own 3 or 4 buildings. I'm very successful, and I've done very well. And it was because of the situations he put me in the classroom, trying to work my way out of them financially. That was probably the second best thing a teacher taught me. The first best thing a teacher taught me was probably about 10 years ago. I was at Cars on Old Seward and Diamond, and there were quite a few people screaming, and I ran up, and there was a young man on the ground, and he had turned blue, and I said, what's going on? They said, he's choking. And I thought, well, I'm going to either hurt him pretty bad or I'm going to save his life, and I gave him the Heimlich maneuver. And I thought I was going to have to give him CPR. But he started breathing, and he lived. And the paramedics came and found me about 10 minutes later, and they said, if you had not done that, he would be dead. And a teacher taught me that. And that's probably the most accomplished thing in my life, the greatest thing I've ever done. So I went to the dentist's office, and we have 3 daughters. Our youngest is Bree. And I went to the dentist's office where Bree worked. And 4 of the ladies that worked with her came up and hugged me and cried and said, "We had no idea. We wish we would have said something. We wish we would have done something. We didn't know what to do." I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, we had no idea that this would happen, that her boyfriend would murder her, because she came into work 2 or 3 times with black eyes, that we had no idea. We didn't know what to do. We didn't want to offend her. We didn't want her to be mad at us. We knew her boyfriend was on probation. We didn't want him to go to jail. We didn't know what to do." And I said, "Well, if she was choking on a Subway sandwich, would you know what to do then?" And they said, "Yeah." And then I realized that was kind of the epiphany of what we needed to do, because Bree didn't need to die. This was 4 months after she was murdered. We had no idea. Until we found out then later through the police research that her boyfriend had abused 5 other young women, and no one had said a thing, and their friends hadn't said anything. So we set out and we got the Alaska Safe Children's Act passed with mandatory education for teen dating violence prevention, as you know, grades 7 through 12 statewide. And Cindy hates it when I say this, but out of lack of a better way to say it, it was not eased into, and a lot of teachers had this kind of thrown at them, and they weren't vested and weren't prepared. And probably the first thing we should have done is we should have had posters like that one right there. Because we found the biggest part, and we've talked with NEA, and we've talked with school boards, and we've talked with a lot of different organizations, and we were meeting with Victims for Justice, and we met with Awake and Starr and all these different boards. And the one question that we ask is, when we have a teenager who's in an unhealthy relationship, or we have an adult who's in an unhealthy relationship, what's the phone number that they call? Where do they go for help? If they just need somebody to talk to find out, is this okay that my boyfriend's making me take my Facebook page down? That's what happened to Bree. Is this okay that my boyfriend doesn't want me texting other friends? Who are you texting? Where are you? Where have you been? That obsessive, compulsive, controlling behavior. And we realized that the education that we have now is not what it really needs to be. There is no education, 10th, 11th, 12th grade nationwide, that discusses the lethality, murder, of potential dating violence. So we are working with Anchorage School District, with Dr. Bishop, with Department of Education, with our Governor Bill Walker, who's directed all the different agencies to work with us and come up with some very simple tools, maybe even just a 4 or 5 minute video to go into the classroom with an outline. But the biggest part right now, is if you're a teenager or a student or even an adult and you don't know what to do or who to talk to, maybe you don't want to talk to your teacher or your counselor or your parents. There's a number you can text, you can chat, you can call. It's anonymous, it's 24/7. These are trained advocates at loveisrespect.org. It's also the same number for the National Domestic Violence Prevention number and hotline. So that is a huge part in the classroom, not just for teachers that we threw this out there and said, you know, do something, say something, talk to someone, but we kind of missed that gap. And I think it's a huge tool. And so we talked with Governor Walker, and we have 359 schools will be receiving these posters over the next week. We have a letter from Dr. Michael Johnson, Commissioner, sent out asking all the school districts to put them up. We have a public service announcement that's on the governor's website today, which will also be on our website, which is breezelaw.org. We're linking to CDVSA and ANDVSA with Stand Up, Speak Up, and Talk Now, Talk Often. So this whole awareness campaign and prevention campaign that we really have, I checked my notes because I don't want to misquote this. The governor signed a proclamation on Friday naming February Teen Dating Violence Prevention Month in Alaska. When we got the law passed, the Safe Children's Act, some of you may remember we had a struggle. We got it through the House, and then we had a little bit of a fight with the Senate, and Governor Walker put it on the call, and Senator Kevin Meyer, at our suggestion or help,
got it back in additional sessions. We got it passed. But if it wasn't for the struggle that we had in the media, these numbers I'm about to tell you would not be as they are now. And from 2015 to 2017, sexual dating violence in Alaska was reduced from 10.1% to 5.5%. We nearly got it in half. Physical dating violence, 9.7 to 7.3. We're still the #1 in the nation in men killing women. Sexual assault, physical assault. Over 50% of all women in Alaska have been sexually or physically assaulted. So with your help, we intend to change this. And you don't have any time left, sorry. Oh, we got an hour.
I just wanted to say that the #1 cause of injury to young women age 16 to 24 is because of dating violence. That's pretty shocking.
I did want to share that Bree was an ASD graduate, and I believe that's Diamond High School there, where she played volleyball. And Bree and Cindy have also been working with Kaylee through the Student Advisory Board as well, and her advocacy as well, supporting what we can do with teens. And some of the suggestions that she had brought up was that we need to make the story real to students, not just the curriculum that they read in a book, but make the story real, and therefore the posters, the understanding that Bree was one of us. She was an ASD student.
We have Kevin and Kaya came. If you have a minute for them, they're also on the Student Advisory Board, and it would be nice if they could give some input. The Student Advisory Board helped us design that poster. We took it 2 different meetings and used their input, and so we're thankful for that. They were a huge part of a lot of the different things that we're doing right now.
Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Kevin. I'm a junior at South High School.
I'm Kaya Etheridge. I'm a junior at South High School.
And we just wanted to come here today to kind of tell you guys about the student perspective as far as when we heard Bree's story. It was back in December when we went to a Student Advisory Board meeting, and Butch and Cindy came and they told us about Bree. And at the time, we'd had some of the education that about safe dating and dating violence, but we didn't understand why we were getting this education. And so, Kai, probably talk about what happened at the meeting.
So after the Moores gave their presentation, Kevin and I and a few other students approached them after the meeting, and we all just felt like compelled to help them out and to do what we can and to find out more about Bree's Law. And ever since, we've been working with the Moores on how we can, as students, advocate for this, and it's been really eye-opening and just really cool to work with them.
Yeah, and we just wanted to show the fact that now that we have heard Bree's story from the student perspective, it's made this whole thing real for us. And the way that Bree was someone who was our age, she was in our age group, she went to high school just like us in Anchorage, and the fact that this happened to someone who was so directly related to us in the situation that we're in, it just made it so real. I mean, the fact that this could happen to my friend tomorrow, it could happen to anyone I know, it could happen at any moment. We just don't know what is happening. And so when students see that this can happen to anyone that they know at school, it adds a whole new perspective to our to the way we see this education, and it makes it so important for us. So that's all we got.
Thank you so much for your input.
Thank you.
And if the school board has any questions, we can certainly answer any, but we our principals have the posters and are delivering to their schools, and basically it's been reminded over and over again tonight, safe and clean schools, and it takes all of us to do that. So
thank you.
Thank you so much. I wanted to mention one other thing that was very important to us, that as far as all the different agencies in the state and everyone working together. 3 years ago when we passed the law, there was a lot of objection and kind of not quite sure why we should do this. And I think a lot of it has to do with timing, a lot of what's in the news right now in the media. And one of the things that we were so happy to hear, we met with South Central Foundation with Catherine Gottlieb, and we had her look at the posters, and we said, we want to make sure that rural Alaska in the village, they're going to identify with a blonde girl, a white girl from Diamond High School. And there were several directors there, and they all said the same thing. We need this. We need this in the schools, and we need it out there right now, because we've had so many posters with Native women and Native girls. They need to understand this happens to everyone. And so any input that that the school board has, we're working with Dr. Bishop and developing, some little short modules that can be easily implemented that'll make it easier on teachers to deliver the material. But we found the biggest link was when a teacher or a student maybe doesn't want to talk or have that conversation, they didn't have that kind of relief valve or that mechanism of where to go. And so that's why we felt the posters were so important. So we want to thank all of you here for embracing this and helping.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out again. Madam President, the next item was a partnership with our city. If Barbara Jones could please come forward. We want to do our part as educators. We are in partnership with AEA as well to share the information in regard to Anchorage votes by mail. So we are going to have a few minutes just for a little tutorial in regard to that. So we're up to date and that we can share with others.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bishop, and thank you to the board. I have a couple of things that I'd like to share with you. So I'd like to talk to you about 3 things. One is why vote. 2 is what is vote by mail. And 3 is how do we vote by mail. So why vote? Why is voting important? I think we really need to ask that question and figure out the answers for each of us. And I'll tell you why voting is important to me. Voting is important to me because I love Anchorage. I love all this stuff I'm hearing tonight about the great schools, about sports, about the gifted program. Great place to live. That's why I vote. I vote to make sure that Anchorage is a great place to live, work, and play. And I think vote by mail is going to make it easier for people. So I'd like you to remember that. We're going to come back to why is voting important to you. And now I'd like to tell you what is vote by mail. Number 2, vote by mail is simply an alternative ballot delivery system. It means that your ballot is delivered to your mailbox. It's not picked up at a polling location. Some people call vote by mail vote at home. That's it. That's all vote by mail is. So, third, how do you vote by mail? That is a little bit more complicated. So I have 2 parts to how do you vote by mail. One part is how do voters vote by mail, and then the second part is how do election administrators administer vote by mail. So the first part of vote by mail is that the ballots are going to be mailed 21 days before the election. And you're going to get an envelope like this with your ballot package. So then the second part is how do you vote your ballot? So you're going to get a ballot. This is your agenda. We're going to pretend it's the ballot. You have a security envelope and you have a return envelope. You vote your choices in the privacy of your own home using trusted resources. You put it in the security envelope, and then you put the security envelope in the ballot return envelope. All right? Then you sign the voter declaration on the outside of the envelope. That's it. 1, 2, 3.
vote your ballot, put it in the security envelope, put it in the return envelope. Then you can return it in several ways. You can put first-class postage on the envelope and put it in the U.S. Post Office. You can take it to one of the 12 accessible drop boxes. Thank you so much to ASD for putting so many of the drop boxes on your property. And the third way is to return it to one of the accessible vote centers. So, and there's 4 accessible vote centers. So that's how vote by mail works for voters. So how does vote by mail work for election administrators? As I mentioned, the ballot packages are mailed to only qualified voters, and that happens 21 days before the election, this year on March 13th. Second, we have a ballot envelope tracking system. So when you return your ballot to us, there's a barcode on here that has your scrambled voter ID number and other information. So when we run it through the sorter, we know that you voted. It makes sure that only one ballot per voter. It takes a scan of your signature. The scan is sent to a non-internet connected computer. The scan on the envelope is compared to a scan of your signature in the state's voter registration database. It's like a signature. Nobody else is going to be able to sign your ballot envelope. We have trained workers, and we're getting training from the Washington State Troopers on signature analysis. So the fourth part is the ballots are opened and separated from the outer envelope and the security envelope, and this is a procedure that we've done for 40 years if you've ever voted absentee by mail. It's a very standard procedure to maintain the privacy of the person who voted. So now the last step is that the ballots, without the envelopes, are run through high-speed scanners in the new ballot tabulation system. Again, this system also is non-internet connected. The system is from a long-term uni vendor. After the 8 o'clock on election night, we push the button to total the results. The information is taken from an encrypted thumb drive, and then it's uploaded to the website. So we should have results about 8:30 on election night. So that's it. I told you why I vote. I've told you how to vote and what is vote by mail. And so now I'm open to any questions. And as Dr. Bishop knows, if you ask a question, you have to say first why voting is important to you.
Ms. Plunkett.
Kathleen Plunkett, because I want to make a difference. And if you're not part of the solution, you certainly can't, to me, you can't be part of the problem or part of the problem. So to me, it's something I've always done, consider part of my civic duty. I have multiple signatures, and I'm sure I've signed multiple ways, depending on how neat my signature is. How do you handle people who have multiple signatures?
Well, I will tell you on the instructions that are going to be in your ballot package, it does say to please sign your official signature, not your grocery store signature. The other thing I can let you know is that we have gathered signatures from the voter registers for the last 3 municipal elections and the November 2016 State of Alaska general election. Those signatures have been scanned into the State of Alaska's voter registration database. So those are the signatures that we're going to be using. So use the one that you've used when you've last voted, and you should be good.
And I do not remember. so if I wasn't to pick one, will you contact me?
Yes, we
Okay.
will. If there is no match on your signature, the code requires us to contact you within 3 days, and we'll contact you within 3 days. Unfortunately, it's going to be a letter, so pay attention to your mail. Vote as soon as you get your ballot, the sooner you vote, the more likely it is that we'll be able to contact you. And we're calling those opportunity to cure letters. And as long as you get back to us 9 days after the election, before the public session of canvass, we should be able to correct that signature and make sure that it's a match.
Ms. Marsett.
So I can tell you how important voting is to me. When I was 18, I wrote in and asked them to lower the voting age so that everyone could vote that went to war.
Thank you.
And I have to tell my story why it's important to vote. It was a economics teacher I had at West High School who, I don't recall his words, but I remember his message very vividly, and his call to action on being the importance of voting and importance of voting in every election has stayed with me my whole life, and it's why I'm a super voter today, and I direct it all back to that economics teacher in high school. Curtis Bland.
Thank you, Ms. Agosti-Gisler.
So I was taught that if I didn't vote, I didn't get to have an opinion at the table, and so that's why I will always continue to vote in every single election. I'm not quite ready to bring my kid to the table to vote yet, even though I understand that's the direction we're going. Will there be any ballot booths that I can take my children to still keep instilling that opportunity? I'm not ready to transition quite yet, so is there that opportunity?
Yes. There are still 4 and hopefully a 5th accessible vote center, and the accessible vote centers are located at the traditional early and absentee locations. So there's one at City Hall, at LUSAC. The new one this year will be at Eagle River Town Center, where the library is in Eagle River, and then at our election center. So those will be 4. We'll possibly have a 5th. At those accessible vote centers, you can walk in. You're gonna have to give your ID, and when you give your ID, we're gonna give you a ballot package. So we're gonna give you the same ballot package that we mailed to you. So if you wanna save money, taxpayer dollars, bring your ballot package, and then we'll just send you into, we're still gonna ask for your ID. You can go into the voting booth and then vote and then put it in the silver ballot box. And your kids are welcome in that voting booth with you.
Any other board members?
Thank you for coming to this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I would just like to ask all of you and everyone that when you're talking to people about vote by mail, you please tell them why voting is important. It doesn't matter if it's a vote by mail or if it's voting at a polling location. It only matters if voting is important. So thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
I
very
have some materials for you here. Should I leave?
Would you leave those on the table there so everybody in the audience can have access to them
I will.
also? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Madam President, that concludes the information presented in the superintendent report. But I did want to say that I've enjoyed the testimony this evening. I know that it is timely and it's good to hear from all aspects of our district and the good work that we do. To note, the budget process right now really is an ordinance. It's a process that by statute needs to get a budget to the state. Prior to that, there's a city ordinance for which March 1st has to happen, and it has to go as a balanced budget. So this process is to take the revenue and match the expenditures. It does not discount the work that is being done. Already there has been written and oral testimony. I have been to Juneau once and visited our legislators, shared the need. We've supported and provided data to legislature to hopefully a bill will be dropped soon in regard to increasing the BSA. but also the discussions to demonstrate what is happening to our system when funds aren't provided to K-12 education. And so the act of creating this budget, I believe, is not an act of the board or administration or superintendent to say, oh, we've given up. It is strictly to follow the ordinance and the law to provide that balanced budget. However, the board objectives and the board, what do we call those?
Legislative priorities.
The number one thing is about the BSA, which is the funding mechanism for K-12 education. And we look to increase that to continue the good things we do for kids. Any of the suggested reductions were meant to, how can we still carry forward the success of students in this this atmosphere of reductions, and students' well-being is at our mind, and when we receive feedback about ways that we can deliver education to all our kids, that's our goal, whether it's students who need to read, whether it's students who need to be brought up and challenged and accelerated, you know, or anybody just sitting in an English class that needs additional support or just wants to learn. We want those to be active and vibrant classes. So I wanted to end with that note that I am going with students this weekend with some board members down to Juneau, following up next week as well, and there'll be continued to be more advocacy. But already we've testified on 2 bills very publicly as ASD in support of funding for education.
Thank you very much. We move now to our Student Advisory Representative Report. Ms. Spencer.
Okay, we have yet to meet since my last report. Our next meeting will be held on February 15th. The main thing that we've been doing, as Dr. Bishop just mentioned, is Daniel, Ben, Delvey, and myself have been preparing for our fly into Juneau. We've been going over several topics that we wish to address to the state legislature, and that's what's been keeping us busy.
Great, thank you very much. We move now to our board conference and committee reports. I don't believe we've had any board members at conferences since our last meeting, no, and committee reports. So we'll go down the line, starting with finance.
The Finance Committee did meet today. The big topic was the budget. All documents that have been presented by the administration. We look forward to meeting again on February 20th from 2:30 to 3:30. Well, again, the topic will be the budget, and I have it on good authority that we may have the CAFR presentation slipped in there as well. So if we get confirmation of that, I might want to maybe move it up to 2 and give the additional time to allow for both.
Thank you very much. Governance.
Our next meeting is set for February 21st from 3:30 to 5. And I think we're able to go back to room 150, correct, Katy? So we'll have to send out an update for that. We're starting to work, or continuing to work on our ARs, our administrative regulations associated with our policy that we approved last month, which from a budget aspect has probably saved several teaching positions. So I'm pretty thankful that we've made progress on that. But we'll be going through a couple procurement changes. One is the apprenticeship AR, and the other is a revision to advertising. And then we'll be going over the alternative / charter program ARs. And that'll probably be enough.
Thank you very much. Communications.
Committee met on January 23rd. We took public comment regarding the Welcoming Anchorage resolution, which is on the action agenda tonight. Amendments were made, and an amended resolution was put forth from the committee. It's on the agenda tonight. We talked extensively about communications, creating documents for both updating the legislative documents and the monthly reports for community councils and other meetings the board members would go to. We have staff done a great job on a new February handout, and we also have the what I hope would be the final version of the explanation of the bond package for members to utilize as you go to various community councils and other meetings with the information. We had an extensive discussion about the challenge of educating the public regarding the potential cost of the bonds, given the complexity of how bonds are not all issued in the same year. They're all approved by the public and not all retired all at the same time, and how some of them are refinanced over time. And it makes it very challenging to be able to say with certain, oh, it's going to cost exactly this much. So what we do have is the worst case scenario, and that will be made available to the public as to the cost per 100,000 of assessed property value at $5.93. But there's a very strong case that can be made that it may actually be less than that, depending on how bonds are retired and new bonds are issued. And there's the additional real complexity of the distinction between new bonds, which are going to be financed 100% by the voters in the municipality, versus many of the old bonds being retired, which were assisted with 70% reimbursement from the state of Alaska. This creates the dilemma. It's certainly not a one-for-one retirement to new retired bond to new bond amount as far as what the actual cost to the public would be in taxes. And that challenge is going to increase over time as more and more of the 70% reimbursement bonds get retired and new bonds are issued at 100%. It's just going to get more difficult to accurately communicate that.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to our consent agenda, and I'll entertain that motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda. To approve the September 25th, 2017 regular session minutes and ASD memorandum number 124 personnel report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you please vote? I'll take our advisory members' vote.
Yay.
Thank you. And the motion passes 7 yea, 0 nay. Moving on to our action items.
I move to approve the expulsion of the students associated with ASD incident numbers 1249481 and 1250089 as discussed in executive session.
It's been moved and seconded. Please vote. And that motion carries 7 yea, 0 nay.
I move to approve ASD memorandum number 095 and adopt the attached resolution supporting the Welcoming Anchorage initiative.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. And we will now open for public testimony. Let me make a statement in regards to this. Procedures for agenda item, action items, testimony are as follows. An action item memo is first introduced by the Vice President, and if seconded by another board member, I'll open the floor for public testimony. If you've signed up in advance or you indicate you're interested in providing testimony, I will call you to come to the front table to speak. You have 3 minutes to talk, and you will see a timer on the screen to your left to monitor the time remaining and inform you of when you need to conclude. After all testimony closes, I'll open the floor for board discussion, followed by our student board representative vote, before finally calling for the official vote. Of course, the voting results will be displayed on the screen. We have one person signed up for testimony on this item. Mr. Neese. Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on this memorandum? I'm closing public testimony, opening for board discussion. Ms. Snelling.
I want to thank the Communications Committee for really going through and, to the board for having some good discussions about this resolution. In this time where obviously a discussion also happening is the budget, I just wanted to ask the administration just to clarify that is there any financial cost associated with this to the district in any way?
Through the president, actually no, that this welcoming Anchorage is really a resolution that the board supports the work. However, we don't have any employees that, our employees rather, they volunteer work. We have many employees involved in the work. However, it is on their time and their investment. So many of our employees find the mission dear to their heart and have moved forward and volunteered their time. But our employees work for us during the day, and then this is a volunteer community service that they feel.
Thank you. I'd also like to just reiterate what Mr. Neese says at the Communications Committee. It was a good display of allowing public testimony, and credit to our chair who did allow that. That's not the norm in a committee meeting, but allowed people to state their opinions about the language and to come to a resolution within that committee forum. I thought was a really good democratic process. Any other board members? Okay, I'm closing board discussion. Our student advisory vote.
Yay.
Please vote. And the motion carries 7 yea, 0 nay.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 116 and adopt the attached resolution designating February 5th through 9th, 2018 as School Counselor Appreciation Week in the Anchorage School District.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. I'm opening this up for public testimony. Please come forward. Could you please state your name for the record?
Good evening, Superintendent Bishop and school board members. My name is Elizabeth Congdon McGee, and I am a school counselor here in our district. I am speaking on behalf of being the Associate Executive Director of the Alaska School Counseling Association, and I just want to take this time to read the proclamation that we work hard to get each year signed by the governor to recognize the work that school counselors do in our district and statewide. So, Governor Bill Walker has recognized February 5th through the 9th as the Alaska School Counseling Week. It is also recognized nationwide in our nation as National School Counseling Week. So whereas school counselors are working in Alaska public and private schools to help the students reach their full academic potential, and whereas school counselors have a unique opportunity to make a positive difference in the students' lives in exploring their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents in order to prepare for career development, where school counselors are able to be an integral part of working with educators, administrators, and parents to help students reach realistic goals, whereas school counselors help parents specifically identify ways to work with personal and social growth in their children, and whereas school counselors are active community members and school counselors seek to utilize community members in helping school programs, enrich and complement school programs. Also, we just had an opportunity to recognize the School Counselor of the Year, the Nationwide School Counselor of the Year from Chicago and DC, and as Michelle Obama stated at that, school counselors have the power to teach our kids what it means to go high when others go low. So each day I want to take this time to thank my colleagues for working so hard within the schools. I want to thank my administrators for allowing me to run a comprehensive school counseling program within my school. I want to thank the community members for allowing me to work, and parents for allowing me to work with their children. And I want to thank our children for allowing me to be part of their lives each day as I walk into the classrooms and I walk and collaborate with our teachers, our nurses, and everybody, being able to reach those kids and helping them reach their highest potential. So thank you for recognizing the School Counseling Week, and please take the time to acknowledge the school counselor when you see them with your school visits. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anyone else wishing to testify from the public? Seeing none, I'm closing public testimony. Board discussion is now open. Ms. Marsett.
Just a comment. I'd like to thank our counselors too. We kind of had a discussion earlier about counselors, and and I'm just going to say I graduated in '73, and back then counselors were, this is what you need to do if you're going to college and that sort of thing. But it is such a challenge now. I mean, we have so much trauma, suicide prevention. It really is a challenge, and I do admire and thank our counselors for everything they do for our students and teachers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Holleman.
And to speak likewise, I think that a lot of what counselors do in the course of the year isn't recognized by the general population. It's not a service that a lot of kids need every day or every week or every year, but at the moments where they do need it, it plays a crucial role. And the whole meeting so far tonight is, I don't have the right word for it. In the normal course of talking to people in the course of the day or the week, we hear about how our schools are failing, about how more money won't solve problems. But in having to make these cuts, I think what the board and what the administration has done is tried to spread them very broadly so that they will be as thin as possible. And what we're hearing is people recognizing the impact it will have on their lives in a negative way if they go through. And so I hope, just as with counselors and just with all these others, that people will turn around, not to us, because we would love to be adding counselors, and we'd love to be adding gifted educators, and we'd love to be adding SPED teachers, and we'd love to be adding TAs. All these cuts have been negative. We desperately need your help in telling the same story you're coming to tell us to everybody else, so that they do understand that education dollars have an impact on Alaskans today, in their lives, next week, next month. We aren't being very successful in making the legislature change what they see as the issue. So counselors are a big part of it, and everybody else that's impacting kids is a huge part of it as well.
So I'd like to add, this month is Visit Our Schools Month, and our first opportunity is tomorrow, and every Tuesday this month at 9:30 a.m. and on the second to the last Tuesday of the month, I believe it is, there's also an evening session. But I encourage anyone who's going to take advantage of visiting a school, hopefully you'll visit one even if you have no children or grandchildren in them, that you specifically ask that question, what's the role of the counselor in this school? How do counselors impact this school's environment and the abilities of students to become successful? So, any other comments from board members? Closing board discussion, our student advisory vote.
Yay.
Members, please vote. The motion carries 7 yea, 0 nay.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 123 and adopt a resolution recognizing Friday, February 16th, 2018 as Elizabeth Petrovich Day.
It's been moved and seconded. I'm opening now for public testimony. Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jacquesta. My English name is Tasha Hodge. Jacquesta means daybreak in Plunkett. So I grew up in Plunkett country, so I'm really excited to see this memorandum. I also think that it's important to just acknowledge that our students, the ones that we see our education gap affecting the most, need to see a strong minority role model. And I think that that's what we see in Elizabeth Peradovich and in the communities and circles in my peer groups. Since I'm Alaska Native, it always comes up because people know that I come to these meetings. Are they celebrating Elizabeth Peradovich Day? So I'll be really excited to let both my community council and my tribe know that this was an agenda topic tonight. And also just include that there's a lot of resources out there for people who want to learn more. See Alaska Heritage Institute has a whole page dedicated to Elizabeth Peradovich Day. Things from songs and worksheets to learn more about her and just the anti-discrimination work that not just she did, but the Alaska Native Sisterhood and the Alaska Native Brotherhood together. And so I just wanted to say thank you very much for being thoughtful and putting this on the agenda. Ganesh Chish.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the public wishing to testify? Then I'm closing public testimony, opening board discussion. Mr. Donley?
Yeah, I was really lucky to be able to attend a Alaska Bar Association continuing legal education course on Elizabeth Peradovich. And in addition to being one of the first anti-discrimination bills introduced and passed in Alaska, it was actually one of the first in the history of the United States. So Alaska was way, way ahead of the curve on this issue, and in a large part due to her advocacy.
Thank you very much. Any other testimony or discussion from board members? Closing board discussion. Student advisory vote.
Yay.
Please vote, members. Motion carries 7 yea, 0 nay.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 119 and authorize the superintendent to accept a grant from the State of Alaska Department of Education and Early Development deed, grant amount of $412,283, and ASD participating share of $221,999 for a total amount of $634,282 for the Romick Middle School Gym Seismic Repairs Project.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. I'm opening for public testimony. Seeing no one wishing to testify, I'm closing public testimony, opening for board discussion. Closing board discussion. Student advisory vote.
Yay.
Board members, please vote. Motion carries 7 yea, 0 nay. And at this point, we have concluded our action items. We move to non-action items on the agenda. Are there any memorandums that board members wish to pull for discussion? I'd like to pull Memorandum 118, the ASD legislative grant requests. And I'd like to ask the administration to please clarify what this is and why we prepare this memorandum and how we proceed.
Sure, and I will have Mr. Tom Roth.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop, through the board president. In response to your specific question, Ms. Agosti-Gisler, the district does prepare an annual legislative request for financial support, and these are projects that are driven by need at the school level. You may recall a couple of years ago, the school board did issue some guidance through the administration to limit the nature of the request to capital improvements as well as some information technology capabilities, computers, interactive technology, and you'll see reflected in these projects are reflected on the list are those projects that meet that criteria. So that's the purpose behind it. Over the last couple of years, to my experience, we have not received funding due to some of the fiscal matters, but we still have have hope that some of these may be filled by our legislatures.
Thank you. Anything else from board members? Okay, we're moving to future items for future business. Are there any items that board members wish to bring up for consideration for putting on a future agenda? Mr. Donley?
Just something I'd like to learn more about is elementary school sports. I think there are elementary schools that have sports teams that are competing with other elementary schools, but it isn't a uniform system at all. And I just want to learn more about it.
Okay, thank you. Is there another board member who expresses interest in that same subject?
Second.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other items? Okay, then I'm moving on. We have a public testimony on non-agenda and non-action items, the second opportunity. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to come speak?
This is what I thought I signed up for earlier.
Okay.
All right. I'm pretty sure you know my name, so I'm not going to do that part, but David Neese. Looking at your capital budget, I'd like to say the presentation by you guys this afternoon, that's probably the best budget document I've seen out of ASD in 30 years. I mean, good job, guys. It's a great document. The results are bad, but it's a good document. There's a couple items. First of all, ASD Memorandum 126, I think it was. No, sorry. It's the one where they're moving the leftover interest money to work on, I believe it's East High's entranceway. You got about $300,000 moving into a project that was estimated to be $100,000 to start with, so you got a $500,000 budget on a $100,000 item. I'm pretty sure East has been there for a long time, because we used to just have West and East. And West was best and East was least way back when. But I'm pretty sure they know the soils in that area of town for 50 plus years. So to see a project that comes back in there and it's like, it's going to cost a lot more because we've looked at the soils, it is surprising in itself. One of the other things that Dr. Bishop and I crossed wires earlier this week when we were testifying. I was testifying against the early funding of schools because it did not prioritize teachers. And she was testifying for the early funding of schools because she wanted to get the budget done faster. Well, getting the budget done faster so that you can give teachers pink slips before the cutoff date isn't an improvement. Getting the budget prioritized, it will be on the floor tomorrow morning in the House of Representatives. And I haven't seen a word or testimony from a single board member going like, we think teachers are important. They've been telling us that since August. They think they should be the first thing in a budget list in the state, and not telling them that. The legislatures in Juneau, that you think teachers are a priority item, is probably not the best thing. It's not a good message to send down there. All you've done is you've presented that we want the money early, don't tell us how to spend it. That's the same game we played for 40 years. And I really like you passing the new rules and stuff, because it basically says that we can finally rent high schools to have conversations about elections and stuff, because it isn't against the interests of the Anchorage School District. That's a policy 1000 revision you had. So hopefully we can finally get that going, getting people participating. Since we've got this new vote by mail thing, you have probably one of the strongest companies in Anchorage. You have a 90% voter registration in your employees. To me, that's 10% that you need to go talk to. And you need to send them out an email and go like, have you checked your voter status? I know you just moved from Fairbanks and Juneau. Did you update? You got married, you got divorced. Did you update? Please get that information out to them, because if they're not in the municipal clerk's database and they have moved 90 days since their last place they have registered as their mailing address, they're not going to get a ballot.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Susan Ritter. I work at Service High School. I'm a special education teacher. I have a comment that I heard from a parent who didn't feel comfortable coming tonight, or perhaps was busy. She wasn't clear on that. But one of her children is a middle school student who has had difficulties in our school district and has tried homeschooling. She's done homeschooling. She's done different schools. What struck me about the conversation she shared with me, she was looking for some other ideas, alternatives for her daughter, and I sent her in another direction. But what struck me was the Zangle requirement, the grading every week for students in Zangle. And she said that just crushed her daughter, that a grade that she had to look at every week, whether it was whatever the grade was, a C, a B, an A, it just caused so much pressure for her child that she felt that it wasn't, she wouldn't let her daughter look at the grades, and she would just convey that that's a lot of pressure that I didn't think about myself. I don't have to do it often in my area, but it is a requirement, and I've heard other parents say that their third grader got a D in something in spelling, and it's just an area that I'd like to have you all take a look at and just see if that is helpful or not helpful, putting, requiring grades in Zangle every week and a subject. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for
very
your
much.
testimony. Is there anyone else wishing to testify?
Good evening. My name is Mark Conley, and I am a 12th grader at Chugach High School. I want to talk to you today, once again, about the issue for funding for the highly gifted programs in the Anchorage School District. While I recognize the importance of these programs to highly gifted students, I feel that it is unfair to forget about the students we so quickly deem average. As someone who goes to Chugach High School 5 days a week, I am all too aware of the academic shortfalls in not only my grade, but in all grades. There are plenty of average students who are still struggling to get the education they deserve, whether it be in math, science, or English. They struggle daily to complete their assignments because they don't know what they are learning, and in some cases, they aren't learning at all. For example, my little brother, who is also a Chugach High student, struggles daily to understand his math homework despite his weekly tutoring sessions. He tells me and my parents that he feels like his teacher doesn't care and that he is worried that he will fall behind. This is unfair. All students, gifted or average, deserve the fullest attention and care from their schools. I refuse to accept the idea that our highly gifted students are more important than everyone else. How can we hope for a future generation of smarter kids if we forget about the students who we don't deem as gifted? How can we hope for this if many of our students are still struggling to read at their grade levels or perform in math at their grade levels? We cannot. I plead with you to hear my testimony and listen. Please do not forget about the students who struggle daily in the shadow of the students who soar. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you for your testimony. Could you spell your name, please?
Mark.
Last name.
Oh, C-O-N-N-E-L-L-Y.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Is anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, I'm closing public testimony on non-action on agenda items and opening up for school board administration comments.
Madam President.
Dr. Bishop.
Thank you. I would like to just go on record and respond that there was testimony given by me to the state in regard to a bill that provided early funding for education so that it wasn't used as a pawn at the end of the session to decide basically that's kind of what happens with education, is it's used as a tool amongst the larger budget. And so my testimony was in support of two bills, one in the House and one in the Senate, that would provide stability early on. It was not about getting funding so we could figure out who to lay off. That was inaccurate and I think inappropriate. And I'm so happy to say that public testimony is taped and recorded, so you can go on January 25th and listen to the recording of the testimony if you'd like. We do want early funding. We want to keep our teachers, but we not only want early funding, we want to increase our public education funding for K-12. Thank you.
Mr. Holleman.
And I'll follow that as someone who has spent a lot of time before being on the board advocating for increased or advocating for early funding for education. The key reason revolves around not injecting this uncertainty into the workforce. I mean, granted, it makes life easier for a lot of the staff if they have a budget number early on. But the motivation and the reason that I hear over and over and over again whenever any of us are talking to anyone is the uncertainty causes the district to have to issue pink slips. And that's the uncertainty that we're trying to get rid of. And I think it's the only one most people truly, deeply care about. It also has a lot to do with some of the rules that are established about who gets laid off and how that happens. If a workforce of 3,500 people knows that maybe 50 or 60 people are going to be laid off, and you have no idea who it is, your entire workforce becomes destabilized. And we do have certain rules about seniority or about what areas people are in that help limit that. And so unfortunately, we only terrorize 300 or 400 people when there's that uncertainty out there. But I agree with what the superintendent said. The goal in seeking this early funding, even if it's not the complete number, if it's high enough that we know it can be handled through attrition, and you can turn around to the workforce to say, we know we're not going to be issuing pink slips, that there is huge value in that, and that is, I'm thinking 98% of the reason that we seek that early funding.
Ms. Plunkett.
I just wanted to do a reminder to all high school seniors that the June Nelson Memorial Scholarship online application deadline is March 12th. And it must be submitted online, which is different this year, and it must be submitted completely. And to just go over the question that you're answering for your essay, as well as then the rest of the documents, is who or what has empowered you in your life, and how can you help to empower other students in the future? And it's a $1,500 scholarship this year if you are selected, and last year there was a lot of applications that we read, which is always good. But if you are selected, returning students can apply for a second year. So remember the deadline. You have roughly a month to get it in, more than enough time to get it in. And I hope that Anchorage has more scholarship applications than anyone else in the state. That's my goal.
For clarification, that's a scholarship given by our Association of Alaska School Boards.
Yes, and it's at aasb.org is where you can get it. I did send out earlier to, or the administration did, to all of the counselors. So if you don't have it, you can probably contact Katy, right, to get it again? Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Marsett?
So I just wanted to add on to what, and then I think Bettye wanted to talk too. I just wanted to add on to what Andy.
Oh, we're not going to the next item. I'll pick you up right after her.
Okay. I did too testify, went down to the LIO building. I was the only one down there. I think everybody was smarter than me and called in. But anyway, you know, it is about the teachers, and it is about the pink slips, and it is about the disruption. It's about those teachers having to pack up their classrooms. First-year teachers packing up their classrooms when they made the commitment to come to Alaska and invest in our community and brought their families and thought, you know, this is where I'm going to be, and now we're giving them pink slips and they're packing up. It's very emotional. It creates a lot of you know, the morale in the schools. Some schools had, you know, I don't know, 5 or 6 that were, maybe even more, that were packing up their classrooms. But not only that, when individuals found out that were hired to come up here to teach for the next school year, when they found out what happened, they declined to come up here. So it not only affects our teachers that are here, but it affects us bringing teachers up here to work for us. And so it's going to keep some of the best teachers from even coming up here and working with our children if this continues. So, you know, I'm going to Juneau, Tam's going to Juneau, Dr. Bishop's going to Juneau, and believe me, we are going to tell them these stories, and stories are very important. Our students are going to Juneau, and they're going to be telling their stories. And we are at the point where we have to have the funds to continue. And if we don't get those funds, I fear for what our education is going to become. So I can tell you, as advocates up here, we are going to be asking for what we need as a district for our teachers, for our students, and for this community.
Thank you. And I believe, I'll get with you, Betty, but I did see the hand down here first.
So the board has heard about the movie Screenagers, and Rogers Park is going to be holding a screening on the 8th at 6 p.m. So if board members are interested in getting in and seeing that movie that was recommended on children and screen time, there would be an opportunity to do so here in the next couple of days.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
I wanted to get back to the scholarship that you say is available for students. I want to know if that...
Please use your mic.
If you have that application out to all the schools so that the counselors could know that information?
I believe we did once, so it was more online if somebody, if a student didn't hear it or a teacher didn't. But maybe it's something that we can ask to be sent out again, since it is about a month before it's due.
Just for clarification, it was sent out on the internal newsletter to everyone in the district.
Yeah.
And there is a page on our the ASD website that lists all of the scholarship opportunities that counselors are well aware of. So, but it doesn't hurt to remind people again. Any other board members? I have a comment, but I want to give you an opportunity first. Okay. I just want to state too, I did send written communication to a number of legislators concerning these 2 bills about early funding for education, and in my rationale, it was all about teachers and avoiding the debacle that happened last year and has happened in previous years with pink slips. And having been on the other side and been through this district in decades past when we had pink slips, I know the trauma and the disruption that causes. And so I wanted to assure those in attendance and watching that we very much are advocating on behalf of our teachers and our students for this early funding of education. Additionally, I wanted to do a shout out to Whaley. They put on a very successful gala and a silent auction that other board members, including Ms. Marsett, who was a keynote speaker. It was a very successful event and a wonderful opportunity to recognize the achievements of that staff and that facility that are that work so hard on behalf of our students. Additionally, encouraging board members to continue their work at community councils and getting the information out about our bonds, and probably some additional questions now concerning budget to help inform the community and bring them into the discussion and the processes. Finally, we had a very successful board leadership academy session. If you're not aware, we've been having those at least monthly, sometimes more than once a monthly since last April. There is one additional session that will occur this month in February, and in March we're going to have a graduation ceremony for some of the community members who have been participating in the Board Leadership Academy. And some individuals in the Academy have participated because they're interested in future board service, others because they wanted to have a better understanding of the inner workings of the Anchorage School District. And the staff, administration, my kudos go out to you and my deep appreciation for the hard work you've done in participation in those events that have been very successful, and I hope begins a trend that we sustain for many years that prepares all for service on this board. Any other comments from board members? I have one. Ms. Marsett?
I was very shocked to hear your announcement, Tam. And I just want to say as a board member that, and I know it's a little early, but we're going to miss you.
I'm not lame yet.
I know, but that we're going to miss you, and it was a shock. And,
yeah, I will not be rerunning for my board seat. My husband and I are moving to Switzerland in September, where I will be teaching again. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
I need a second. Been moved and seconded. We are adjourned.